Claire Whitfield pulled into the driveway at 7:43 on a Tuesday evening. The house was quiet. Too quiet. The porch light was off, which was strange because Derek always left it on when he was home. His car was in the garage. She could see the silver bumper reflecting the streetlight, but the house looked like it was holding its breath. She grabbed her bag from the passenger seat and walked to the front door. Her trip had ended a day early. A conference in Philadelphia that was supposed to run through Wednesday. But the last speaker canceled, and Claire decided to surprise her husband. Maybe cook something nice. Maybe open that bottle of wine they had been saving. She turned the key slowly. The door opened without a sound. The living room was dark. The kitchen was dark. But upstairs, a thin line of light crept from under the bedroom door. Claire set her bag down by the stairs. She slipped off her shoes. And she climbed, one step at a time, her hand barely touching the railing. She did not know why she was being quiet. Something in her body told her to be silent. Something old, something instinctive, like the part of you that freezes when you hear a branch snap in the woods at night. She reached the top of the stairs. The hallway stretched ahead of her, family photos on the wall, their wedding, Christmas 2 years ago, a vacation in Maine where Derek caught a fish and smiled like a boy. The bedroom door was cracked open, just an inch. Enough for the light to escape, enough for the sound to escape too. Claire pushed the door open, and the world she had built over 12 years collapsed in a single breath. Derek was in their bed, the one with the white duvet she had picked out, the one with the pillows she fluffed every morning, the one where she had slept beside him for over 4,000 nights. He was not alone. A young woman, dark hair spilling across the pillow, tan skin, eyes wide with terror the moment the door swung open. Derek scrambled. The sheets twisted around his legs. His face went from shock to something worse, calculation. His eyes darted between Claire and the girl, already searching for words, already building a lie. Claire, this is not what it looks like. But Claire was not looking at Derek. She was looking at the nightstand. His nightstand, where his government badge sat next to his watch. The badge that read, Derek Whitfield, Regional Director, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. And beside the badge, a document, a manila folder with a name printed on the tab. Reyes. Claire stared at that name for what felt like a full minute. The young woman in the bed was pulling the sheet up to her chin, trembling, tears already forming. Derek was talking. He was always talking. Words poured out of him like water from a broken pipe, fast and useless. But Claire heard none of it. She picked up the folder, opened it. Inside, a photograph of a woman, older, 50, maybe 52, dark hair streaked with gray, tired eyes, a face that had seen too much. Underneath the photograph, a name, Rosa Reyes, and underneath that, 2 words that changed everything. Deportation order, signed by Derek Whitfield. Claire closed the folder. She looked at the young woman in the bed, then at the folder, then at Derek. And in that moment, Claire understood something that most people never have to understand. The man she had married, the man she had given 12 years of her life to, the man who swore to protect and serve. He had deported this girl's mother, signed the order himself, sent a woman who had lived in this country for 25 years back to a place she barely remembered. And then, after ripping a mother away from her daughter, he had found that daughter, hired her, and brought her into his bed. Claire did not scream. She did not throw anything. She did not cry. She stood in the doorway of her own bedroom holding a deportation file and felt something she had never felt before. Not sadness, not anger. Something deeper. Something colder. Like a door closing inside her chest. A door that would never open again. She set the folder back on the nightstand, gently, as if it were made of glass. "Get dressed," she said to the girl. Her voice was calm, almost kind, "and leave through the back door." The young woman moved fast, clothes grabbed from the floor, eyes down. She did not look at Claire. She did not look at Derek. She slipped past like a shadow and disappeared down the stairs. Derek sat on the edge of the bed. He had stopped talking. For once in his life, Derek Whitfield had nothing to say. Claire looked at him. Really looked. The man she had met at a political fundraiser 14 years ago. The man who had swept her off her feet with confidence and ambition and promises so big they blocked out the sun. The man who told her she did not need to work anymore, did not need her career, did not need her friends, did not need anything but him. "Claire," he said. His voice was softer now, the voice he used when he wanted something. "Let me explain." "No," she said. One word, and she turned and walked down the stairs. She did not take her bag. She did not take her keys. She walked out the front door, down the driveway, and sat in her car. The engine was still warm. The seat still held her shape from the drive home. Claire gripped the steering wheel with both hands. Her knuckles went white. Her jaw was locked. Her eyes were dry. And then, slowly, like a crack spreading through ice, she exhaled. 12 years. She had given that man 12 years. Her 20s, her 30s, her career, her identity. She had been Claire Morrison once, journalist, award-winning, fearless. The kind of woman who chased stories into dark corners and pulled the truth out screaming. She had written a front-page piece at 26 that exposed a corrupt housing inspector in Baltimore. She had spent 3 months undercover researching labor exploitation in poultry farms. Editors called her relentless. Sources called her trustworthy. Her mother called her brave. Then she met Derek at a fundraiser in Georgetown. He wore a Navy suit and spoke about border security with the kind of confidence that fills a room. He bought her a drink, then another, then dinner the next night. Within 3 months, she was in love. Within 8 months, she was married. And within 2 years, she was invisible. It happened slowly, the way all disappearances do. First, he suggested she take a break from work. "You have been running nonstop for years, babe. Take some time. You deserve it." She agreed. Then he suggested she stop freelancing. "People might think my wife is investigating me. It looks bad." She agreed again. Then the friends. "Those people do not understand our world, Claire. They are jealous of what we have." One by one, they stopped calling, and Claire stopped reaching out. By year 5, she was a ghost in her own house, a woman who woke up, made coffee, cleaned, cooked, smiled, and went to sleep. Repeat. Every single day. Now she was Claire Whitfield, wife, homemaker, the woman who made pot roast on Sundays and smiled at dinner parties while her husband took credit for everything, including her silence. But that was before tonight. Tonight, Claire had seen something she was never supposed to see. Not just a husband cheating. That would have been simple, painful, but simple. No. What Claire had seen was something far worse. A pattern, a system. A man who used the most powerful immigration agency in the country as his personal weapon. Who deported a mother and then took her daughter like she was a reward. And nobody knew. Nobody except Claire. She sat in that car for 27 minutes. She counted. Every minute was a decision. Every minute was a choice between falling apart and standing up. At minute 27, Claire Whitfield made her choice. She did not drive to a friend's house. She did not drive to a hotel. She did not drive to her mother's grave to cry. She drove to a 24-hour pharmacy, bought a notebook, a pen, and a prepaid phone. Then she parked in the lot of a closed grocery store, opened the notebook, and started writing. Names, dates, details, everything she remembered from the folder on the nightstand, everything she had seen on Derek's face when he realized she had read the name Reyes. Everything she had noticed over the past 12 years but told herself did not matter. Claire Morrison had been a journalist, the best kind, the kind who did not need anyone to hand her the story. She found it herself. Thread by thread, she pulled until the whole thing came apart. And tonight, for the first time in 12 years, that journalist woke up. Because this was not just about a broken marriage. This was not just about betrayal. This was about a man with a badge and a signature who destroyed lives because he could, who separated families because it served him, who used fear as a leash and silence as a weapon. And Claire? Claire had spent 12 years in silence. She knew exactly how powerful it could be. The parking lot was empty. The streetlights buzzed overhead. A moth circled one of them in a slow, patient spiral. Claire wrote until her hand hurt. Then she closed the notebook, placed it inside her bag, and started the car. She did not go home, not yet. She was not ready to look at Derek, not because she was afraid, but because she needed him to think that she was. She needed him to believe that she was shattered, that she would cry for a few days and then accept whatever crumbs he offered. An apology, a lie about it being the first time, a promise to change. That was what Derek expected. That was what Derek understood. A wife who forgave, a wife who stayed, a wife who had no options. But Derek had made one critical mistake, the kind of mistake that powerful men always make. He had stopped paying attention. He had looked at Claire and seen a housewife, a decoration, a function. He had forgotten who she was before he clipped her wings. He had forgotten that before she was his wife, she was a hunter. And now, for the first time in over a decade, Claire Whitfield had something worth hunting. She pulled into the parking lot of a motel 6 miles from their house, paid cash, room 14, second floor. She locked the door, set the chain, placed the notebook on the nightstand, and she smiled. Not a sad smile, not a bitter smile. The kind of smile that appears on the face of someone who has just realized that the worst moment of their life might also be the beginning of the best. Claire touched the silver necklace around her neck, a small dragonfly pendant. Her mother had given it to her on her 18th birthday. Dragonflies only fly forward, her mother had said. Remember that. Claire held the pendant between her fingers. Forward, she whispered. Then she turned off the light and waited for morning. Morning came slowly. Gray light pushed through the thin motel curtains. Claire had not slept. She had spent the night sitting on the edge of the bed, notebook in her lap, filling pages with everything she knew and everything she did not. She showered, put on the same clothes from the night before, checked out at 6:15. The woman at the front desk did not ask questions. Claire liked that. She drove back to the house. Derek's car was still in the garage. The porch light was on now. He had turned it on sometime during the night. Probably when he realized she was not coming home. Probably when he started rehearsing his apology. Claire parked, sat in the car for a full minute. Then she walked inside. He was in the kitchen, coffee made, 2 cups on the counter. He was wearing the blue shirt she had ironed 3 days ago. His face looked like he had not slept either, but he had shaved. He had combed his hair. He had prepared himself for this conversation the way he prepared for press conferences. Controlled, rehearsed. Claire, he said. He stood up. His voice was soft. Careful. I have been up all night. I need to talk to you. She set her bag down, poured herself coffee from the pot, took a sip, said nothing. It was a mistake, Derek continued. A terrible, stupid mistake. She means nothing to me. It happened once. I swear on everything. Once. Claire looked at him over the rim of her cup. His eyes were steady. His hands were still. He believed his own lie. That was the thing about Derek. He had told so many lies over so many years that they became indistinguishable from the truth. Even to him. Okay, Claire said. Derek blinked. Okay. I heard you. It was a mistake. It happened once. He exhaled. His shoulders dropped. Relief flooded his face like sunlight breaking through clouds. He stepped toward her, arms opening for an embrace. Thank you, babe. I promise you I will never— I need a few days, Claire interrupted. She did not step back, but she did not step forward either. I need to process this. Of course, he said. Of course. Take whatever time you need. I will sleep in the guest room, whatever you want. Claire nodded, took her coffee upstairs, closed the bedroom door behind her, and then she went to work. The first thing she did was strip the bed, every sheet, every pillowcase, the duvet. She put them in a garbage bag and carried them to the garage. She would burn them later, or throw them away. It did not matter. They were contaminated now, not just by what had happened on them, but by what they represented. Years of sleeping next to a stranger. She remade the bed with fresh sheets from the hallway closet. Then she sat on the edge and opened her notebook. Page 1. She had written it in the motel. Names, dates, observations. Now she needed more. She needed evidence. Real, tangible, undeniable evidence. Claire knew how investigations worked. She had spent years doing them. The key was never the big dramatic discovery. The key was the small things, the receipts, the schedules, the patterns. You build a case the way you build a wall, one brick at a time, and you do not let anyone see the wall until it is too tall to climb over. For the next 3 weeks, Claire Whitfield became two people. The first Claire was the wife Derek expected. She cooked dinner. She smiled. She asked about his day. She kissed his cheek when he left for work and said, "Have a good day, honey," with the exact same tone she had used for 12 years. She even let him move back into the bedroom after 1 week. She lay beside him in the dark and listened to him breathe and felt absolutely nothing. The second Claire was the journalist she had buried, and that Claire was methodical, patient, relentless. She started with the small things, Derek's schedule. He left the house every morning at 7:15. He returned between 6 and 6:30, except on Wednesdays. On Wednesdays, he came home at 9, sometimes 10. He always said the same thing. Long meeting with the regional team. Claire had heard that sentence so many times she could recite it in her sleep. But now she checked. She called the ICE regional office from a payphone, pretending to be a journalist working on a profile piece. "Could you confirm Director Whitfield's Wednesday evening meetings?" The receptionist paused. "I am sorry, we do not have any recurring Wednesday meetings on the director's calendar." Claire wrote it down. Wednesday evenings, unaccounted, then the receipts. Derek was careless with his wallet. He left it on the kitchen counter every night. Claire started photographing every receipt while he showered. Most were normal: gas, coffee, dry cleaning. But every week, without fail, there was a receipt from a restaurant called Alma, Mexican cuisine, upscale, $47, $62, $53, always for two, always on a Wednesday. Derek hated Mexican food. He had said so 100 times. Too much cilantro, too many beans. He made a face every time Claire suggested a taco place, but every Wednesday there he was, spending $50 on food he supposedly could not stand. Claire wrote it down, then the phone. Derek had always been casual with his phone. He would leave it on the coffee table, the kitchen island, the bathroom counter. But recently Claire noticed the phone was always face down, always on silent, always within arm's reach. If Claire walked into a room, his thumb would drift to the screen and press it dark. A small gesture, almost invisible. But Claire saw everything now. One night, 2 weeks after the bedroom, Derek fell asleep on the couch watching a football game. His phone sat on the armrest. Claire picked it up. His face unlocked it. She had 30 seconds, maybe less. She opened his apps. Nothing obvious. Messages clean, email clean. But then she noticed an app she did not recognize. It had no icon, just a gray square tucked into a folder labeled Utilities. She tapped it. A messaging app. Encrypted. The kind that deletes messages after they are read unless you save them. But Derek had saved them. Every single one. Over 500 messages spanning 18 months. And the name at the top of the conversation was a single letter. V, with a small red heart beside it. Claire felt her stomach tighten, but her hands were steady. She had trained herself for this. She scrolled. The messages started sweet, flirtatious, the kind of thing you would expect from an affair. "I miss you. When can I see you? Last night was incredible." But as Claire scrolled deeper, the tone shifted. It became darker. More controlling, more desperate on one side, and more commanding on the other. V had written, "I am scared, Derek. If someone at the office finds out about us, they will start asking questions about my status. They could deport me." Derek had replied, "Nobody deports anyone in this state unless I say so. You understand? I run this. You are safe as long as you are with me." Claire read that message 3 times. Each time the words hit differently. The first time she felt disgust. The second time, rage. The third time, something colder. Understanding. This was not just an affair. Derek was not just cheating on his wife. He was holding this woman hostage with the threat of deportation. He was using his badge, his title, his power over her immigration status as a leash. "Stay with me, or I send you back. Love me, or lose everything." Claire kept scrolling. V had written, "I spoke to my mother today. She is struggling. She asked if there is any way to come back. She has been there for almost 2 years and she does not know anyone anymore. Derek had replied. "I told you, I am working on it. These things take time. Be patient. Trust me. I have the power to make it happen." Claire stopped scrolling. Her eyes locked on one phrase. She has been there for almost 2 years. 2 years. Derek had been regional director for 3 years. Claire opened her notebook, flipped to the page where she had written the information from the folder on the nightstand. Rosa Reyes. Deportation order signed by Derek Whitfield. Date: March 14th, 2024. Almost exactly 2 years ago. Claire put the phone back on the armrest, exactly where it had been, screen down. She adjusted the angle so it matched the position from before. Then she went to the kitchen and sat at the table with her notebook. She wrote the name in capital letters. Valentina Reyes. Underneath it she wrote, daughter of Rosa Reyes. And underneath that, Rosa Reyes, deported by Derek Whitfield, March 2024. Claire stared at those 3 lines. 3 lines that told a story more horrifying than anything she had ever investigated as a journalist. Derek had signed an order to deport a woman who had lived in this country for 25 years. A mother. A woman with a daughter who depended on her. And then, after sending that mother away, he had found the daughter. Hired her. Pursued her. Seduced her. Used her fear of deportation to keep her close and keep her silent. He had not just cheated. He had engineered this. Removed the mother to isolate the daughter. Created a void in a young woman's life, and then stepped into it, not as a savior, but as a captor wearing the mask of one. Claire closed the notebook. She walked to the bathroom, locked the door, looked at herself in the mirror. 36 years old. Lines around her eyes that had not been there 5 years ago. Hair that needed cutting. Shoulders that carried 12 years of silence. She did not cry. She had done her crying at the motel. What she felt now was different. Cleaner, sharper, like a blade being pulled from a fire. Claire had spent 12 years being underestimated, 12 years being small, 12 years swallowing words and smiling through humiliation and pretending that the life Derek gave her was enough. It was not enough. It was never enough. And now she knew why. Because Claire Whitfield was never meant to be small, she was meant to do exactly what she was about to do. She went back to the kitchen, picked up the prepaid phone she had bought the night of the discovery. She had kept it in her coat pocket, wrapped in a scarf at the back of the closet. Derek would never look there. He had never looked at her closet. He had never looked at her at all. Not really. Claire scrolled through her old contacts. There was one name she had not called in years, a name from her previous life, from the life before Derek. Elena Vargas. They had been in college together, studied late nights in the same library, shared coffee and complaints about professors and dreams about changing the world. Elena had gone to law school, became an immigration attorney, one of the best in the state. Claire had followed her career from a distance, reading about her cases in the news, feeling a quiet pride mixed with a quieter regret. She dialed the number. 3 rings. Then a voice, warm, surprised, a little cautious. "Claire? Claire Morrison?" "It is Whitfield now," Claire said, but not for much longer. A pause. What happened? Claire looked at the notebook on the table, at the name Valentina Reyes, at the web of lies she had been untangling for 3 weeks. "Elena," she said, "I need your help, and I need you to not ask questions until we are face to face." Another pause, longer this time. "Where do you want to meet?" Claire told her. "A coffee shop in Arlington. Quiet. Corner booth. Tomorrow at 10. She hung up, placed the phone back in the coat pocket, wrapped the scarf around it, closed the closet. From the living room, she could hear Derek snoring on the couch, the football game still playing on the television, the sound of a crowd cheering for a team that had already lost. Claire stood in the hallway between the closet and the living room, between who she had been and who she was becoming, between silence and war. She chose war, but not the loud kind, not the kind with screaming and broken dishes and accusations hurled across the kitchen. No. Claire had learned something from 12 years with Derek. She had learned that the people who shout the loudest are the ones who are most afraid. And she had learned that real power, The kind that lasts, the kind that destroys, comes from silence. Derek Whitfield was about to learn that too. He just did not know it yet. The coffee shop in Arlington was called the Paper Cup. Small, 12 tables, exposed brick walls, the kind of place where people came to read and be left alone. Claire arrived 20 minutes early. She chose the corner booth, back to the wall, facing the door. An old habit from her journalism days. Always see who walks in, always have an exit. She ordered black coffee, no sugar, no milk. She had stopped adding milk to her coffee 3 weeks ago. A small change. Nobody noticed. But to Claire it mattered. She was stripping away every habit that Derek had given her, every preference he had shaped, every softness he had encouraged, because soft women are easier to control. Elena Vargas walked in at exactly 10. She had not changed much. A little gray at the temples, sharper jaw, the same dark eyes that used to stay open past midnight in the college library, reading case law while everyone else was sleeping. She wore a charcoal blazer over a white blouse, no jewelry, no nonsense. Elena had always been like that, direct, clean, a woman who believed that words should mean exactly what they say. She spotted Claire, walked over, sat down, did not hug her, did not ask how she had been. Elena understood that this was not a reunion. "Talk," Elena said. Claire reached into her bag and pulled out the notebook. She placed it on the table between them and opened it to the first page. "My husband is Derek Whitfield," Claire began, "Regional Director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement." Elena's expression did not change, but her eyes narrowed slightly. She knew the name. Everyone in immigration law knew the name. Derek Whitfield had overseen more deportations in his region than any director in the past decade. He gave speeches about border security. He appeared on cable news. He shook hands with senators. 3 weeks ago, Claire continued, I came home early from a trip and found him in bed with a young woman. 24 years old. Her name is Valentina Reyes. Claire paused. Let the name settle. Reyes? Elena repeated. Her mother is Rosa Reyes, lived in the United States for 25 years, worked as a seamstress in Falls Church, deported 2 years ago. Claire turned a page in the notebook. The deportation order was signed by my husband. Elena leaned back in her chair. She folded her arms. Claire could see the calculations happening behind her eyes, the connections forming. He deported the mother, Elena said slowly, and then pursued the daughter. Hired her first, Claire corrected. Valentina works as an assistant in his office. He brought her in 6 months after Rosa was deported. Then the relationship started, if you can call it a relationship. What would you call it? Claire turned to another page. She had copied some of the messages from the encrypted app, written them out word for word in her careful, precise handwriting. Read these, she said. Elena read. Her face went through several changes. First, the professional mask, then a crack, then something that looked like fury held on a very short leash. He threatened her with deportation, Elena said, not a question. Multiple times. She is a DACA recipient. Her status depends on renewal. Derek told her he could block or approve that renewal. Stay with me, or end up on a plane like your mother. Those are not my words. Those are his. Elena closed the notebook. She placed both palms flat on the table. Claire recognized that gesture. Elena used to do it in college when she was about to say something important. Claire, this is not an affair. You understand that, right? This is not a man cheating on his wife. This is a federal officer using his position to coerce a vulnerable woman into a sexual relationship through the threat of deportation. That is abuse of authority. That is potentially criminal. That is the kind of case that ends careers and starts federal investigations. I know, Claire said. That is why I called you. Elena studied her for a long moment. What do you want? Claire took a sip of her black coffee, set it down. I want justice, not just for me, for Valentina, for Rosa, and for anyone else he has done this to. The word anyone else hung between them like smoke. Elena caught it immediately. You think there are others? I think a man who builds a system this elaborate does not build it for one person. He has been director for 3 years. Valentina has been in his life for 18 months. That leaves 18 months unaccounted for. And before that, he was deputy director for 4 years. 7 years of access to vulnerable women whose entire lives depend on the decisions he makes. Elena was quiet for a long time. The coffee shop hummed around them, a barista steaming milk. A couple arguing softly near the window, a man reading a newspaper at the counter. Normal life happening all around two women who were about to tear a hole in it. "I need a week," Elena finally said. "I have contacts, former caseworkers, immigration advocates. If there are other women, I will find them." Claire nodded. "And Claire?" Elena added. "You need to go home. You need to act normal. You need to smile and cook dinner and pretend that everything is fine." "Can you do that?" Claire almost laughed. Almost. "Elena, I have been doing that for 12 years. 3 more weeks is nothing." They stood. Elena reached across the table and squeezed Claire's hand. Once. Firm. Then she left. Claire sat alone in the booth for another 10 minutes. She finished her coffee. She looked at the notebook, at the names and dates and connections she had drawn with lines and arrows like a map of something rotten. Then she closed it, put it in her bag, and drove home to make Derek's favorite dinner: grilled salmon, roasted asparagus, lemon butter sauce. She hummed while she cooked. Derek came home at 6:20 and kissed her forehead. "Smells amazing, babe," he said. "I tried something new with the sauce," Claire replied. They ate. They talked about his day. He complained about a budget meeting. She nodded. She asked the right questions. She laughed at the right moments. She was flawless. And underneath the table, her prepaid phone buzzed once. A text from Elena. "Started digging. You were right. Call me tomorrow." Claire excused herself to the bathroom, read the message, deleted it, flushed the toilet for cover, went back to the table. "Everything okay?" Derek asked. "Perfect," she said, and smiled. 6 days later, Elena called. Claire was in the car, parked at a grocery store, engine off, windows up, prepaid phone pressed to her ear. "I found 3, Elena said. Her voice was tight, controlled. But underneath the control, Claire could hear something burning. 3 women, all in the past 5 years, all connected to Derek's office. Claire closed her eyes. The first is Maria Santos, 22 years old when it happened, Guatemalan. She was a temporary administrative aide in the regional office in 2020. 6 months into the job, Derek started paying her extra attention, compliments, small gifts, then dinner invitations. Then it escalated. When she tried to end it, he reminded her that her work visa renewal was pending on his desk. She transferred to a different city within 2 months. She is in Chicago now. Legal status, she never told anyone. Claire wrote the name in her notebook. Maria Santos, Chicago. The second is Camila Herrera, 25, Honduran. Same pattern, 21, temporary position, 6 months of grooming. She left before it went as far. But Derek made sure her next assignment was in a field office 200 miles away. She told her supervisor she wanted the transfer. She did not. She was afraid. Camila Herrera. Claire wrote it down. The third one is the worst, Elena said, and her voice changed. It became quieter, heavier, like the words themselves weighed something. Lucia Salazar, 23, Colombian. She worked in the office in 2022. Same pattern as the others, but Lucia pushed back. She told Derek she was going to report him. 3 weeks later, her immigration paperwork was flagged for irregularities, technical errors that had never been flagged before. Within 2 months, she was deported. She is in Bogota now. She lost her apartment, her job, her life here. Everything. Claire's hand stopped writing. She stared at the name on the page. Lucia Salazar. Deported. Not because she broke any law, not because she was a threat, because she said no. Elena, Claire said. Her voice was steady, but her grip on the pen was not. Are any of them willing to talk? Maria is. I spoke with her for 2 hours yesterday. She cried for the first hour. But she is angry now. She wants to help. Camila is scared but open. Lucia is the hardest to reach. She is in Colombia and does not trust anyone connected to the United States government anymore. I do not blame her. Claire looked through the windshield at the grocery store parking lot. A mother was loading bags into her trunk while her daughter sat in the cart, swinging her legs. A normal Tuesday. A normal life. The kind of life that Derek had stolen from Rosa, from Maria, from Camilla, from Lucia. The kind of life he thought he could steal from anyone without consequence. Elena, I need you to do something else, Claire said. Name it. I need you to find Rosa Reyes, the actual person, in Mexico. I need to talk to her. Silence on the line. That will take time, Elena said carefully. Mexico is not easy, especially for someone who was forcibly removed. They do not always stay where they were sent. I know, but I need her, not just for the case, for Valentina. What about Valentina? Have you spoken to her? Not yet. I need to be careful with that. She is still in Derek's orbit. If I approach her too soon, she might panic. She might tell him. And if he knows what I know, he will destroy every piece of evidence he can reach. Agreed, we wait on Valentina. But Rosa is different, Claire said. Rosa is out of his reach. She is the one person who can confirm what he did from the other side. She can tell us what happened the day she was deported, who was there, what was said. And she can tell us what Derek promised her about Valentina. Elena paused. Then, I have a contact in Oaxaca, a woman who works with deportee reintegration. If Rosa is anywhere in the southern states, she can find her. Do it. Claire. Yes? This is going to be big, bigger than a divorce, bigger than a scandal. If we take this to the authorities with 3 victims, bank records, audio, and testimony from the mother, this becomes a federal case. FBI, Inspector General, congressional oversight. Derek will not just lose his job, he could lose his freedom. Claire was quiet for a moment. She thought about the man she had married. The man who kissed her forehead every morning. The man who snored on the couch during football games. The man who called her babe and never once asked what she dreamed about. And then she thought about Rosa Reyes, 52 years old, sitting in a town she did not choose, separated from her daughter by a signature. Derek's signature. Good, Claire said. She hung up, put the phone in her coat, walked into the grocery store, bought salmon, asparagus, and lemons. That evening, she made dinner again. Derek came home. They ate. He told her about a new enforcement initiative he was leading. He was proud of it. Claire could see it in the way he straightened his back when he talked, the way his voice deepened. He loved the power, the control, the feeling that he held thousands of lives in his hands and could sort them like cards. Sounds important, Claire said. It is, Derek replied. We are making a real difference. Claire nodded. Cut a piece of salmon. Chewed slowly. That night, after Derek fell asleep, Claire went to his home office. The room smelled like leather and cologne. His desk was immaculate, everything in its place, a framed photo of them on the bookshelf. Their wedding day, Claire in white, Derek in a black tuxedo, both smiling. She opened the 3rd drawer on the right side. It was deep, full of old files and folders he never touched. Claire reached underneath the drawer, where the wood met the metal track, and pressed a small digital recorder into the gap. It held 32 hours of audio. She had bought it online, paid with a prepaid card, shipped to a post office box she had rented under her maiden name. She closed the drawer, adjusted the chair to the exact angle Derek had left it, checked for fingerprints on the desk, wiped the handle of the drawer with her sleeve. Then she went to bed, lay down beside him, pulled the blanket up to her chin. Derek shifted in his sleep, mumbled something. His arm reached across the bed and found her waist. He pulled her closer. Claire lay still, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. In 48 hours, that recorder would capture every phone call Derek made from his home office, every whispered conversation with Valentina, every order he gave to subordinates about immigration cases, every lie. And Claire would be right there beside him, smiling, cooking, waiting. 60 days. That was the plan. 60 days of patience, 60 days of gathering evidence, building alliances, and preparing a case so airtight that Derek Whitfield would not be able to talk his way out of it, lawyer his way out of it, or badge his way out of it. He had spent 12 years underestimating her, 12 years treating her like furniture, 12 years assuming that the quiet woman in his kitchen was harmless. He was about to find out what happens when harmless decides to fight back. 3 weeks into the plan, Elena called with news. "I found Rosa," she said. Claire was sitting in her car again. The grocery store parking lot had become her office, the only place she could talk freely, the only place Derek would never think to look. "Where?" Claire asked. "A town called San Mateo Yucutindu, in Oaxaca, southern Mexico. Population maybe 800. My contact says Rosa has been working in a textile factory since she arrived. 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week. She shares a room with 2 other women above a hardware store." Claire pressed her forehead against the steering wheel. 25 years in America. A seamstress who built a life, raised a daughter, paid taxes, attended church every Sunday. And now she was sewing in a factory in a town she had never heard of, sleeping in a room above a hardware store because one man signed one piece of paper. "Can we talk to her?" Claire asked. "My contact is setting up a video call, but Claire, you need to understand something. Rosa does not know about Valentina and Derek. She thinks her daughter is working a normal job. She thinks she is safe." Claire felt something twist in her chest. A mother on the other side of a border, believing her daughter was fine, not knowing that the same man who took her freedom had taken her daughters too, just in a different way. "When can we talk?" "Tomorrow, 8 in the morning our time. That is 3 in the afternoon in Oaxaca. I will be there." The next morning, Claire told Derek she had a dentist appointment. He barely looked up from his phone. "Hope it goes well, babe." She drove to Elena's office. A small firm on the 4th floor of a building in Fairfax. 2 paralegals, 1 receptionist. Walls covered in framed certificates and photographs of Elena with clients who had won their cases. Smiling faces. Families reunited. Green cards held up like trophies. Elena closed the door, opened her laptop. A video call connected through an encrypted service. The screen flickered. Then a face appeared. Rosa Reyes. She looked older than 52. Her hair was mostly gray now, pulled back in a tight bun. Her skin was darker than in the photograph from the deportation file, burned by a sun that did not forgive. But her eyes were sharp, alert, the eyes of a woman who had survived something terrible and refused to disappear. Elena spoke first, in Spanish. She explained who Claire was. She explained that Claire was married to Derek Whitfield. Rosa's face changed when she heard the name. Not fear. Something closer to recognition. The way a person's face changes when they hear the name of a storm that destroyed their house. "I know who he is," Rosa said. Elena translated for Claire. "He came to my home the day before they took me. He stood in my living room. He looked at my photographs. He looked at the picture of Valentina on the wall. He said, 'Your daughter will be fine. I will make sure of it.' I thought he was being kind. I thanked him." Rosa paused. She pressed her hand against her mouth. When she continued, her voice was thinner. "The next morning they came at 5. 4 officers. They did not let me pack properly. I grabbed 1 bag, my Bible, a photograph of Valentina. They put me in a van, then a plane. Then I was in Mexico City. I had not been to Mexico since I was 27 years old. I did not know anyone. I did not know where to go." Claire listened. She did not need Elena to translate every word. Some pain does not need translation. It lives in the voice itself, in the pauses, in the way a hand trembles. "Rosa," Claire said carefully. Elena translated. "I need to tell you something about Valentina, and it is going to be difficult to hear." Rosa's eyes widened. The fear that every mother carries, the fear that something has happened to her child, surfaced instantly. "Valentina is alive," Claire said quickly. "She is safe. She is not in danger, but she is involved with my husband. Derek brought her into his office. He gave her a job, and then he started a relationship with her." Silence. Rosa stared at the screen. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed. "He told her he would bring you back," Claire continued. "He promised her every month that he was working on your return. He used that promise to keep her close, and he used the threat of deporting her to keep her silent." Rosa's face crumbled, not in the way Claire expected. not with tears or screaming. It crumbled inward, like a building collapsing in slow motion. Her shoulders folded, her chin dropped. She pressed both hands against the table in front of her, as if the room might spin if she let go. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. Elena translated, and her own voice cracked. He took me away so he could take her. He planned this. From the beginning. He came to my house and looked at her photograph and decided. Claire did not respond, because Rosa was right, and some truths do not need confirmation. They confirm themselves. The call lasted 47 minutes. By the end, Rosa was no longer crying. She was angry, the kind of quiet old anger that comes from a lifetime of being treated as less than. She agreed to provide a written statement. She agreed to testify if it ever came to that. And she asked Claire one question before they disconnected. Will my daughter be safe? Claire looked at the screen. At the face of a woman she had never met, separated by 2,000 miles and a border that had been used as a weapon. I will make sure of it, Claire said, and unlike Derek, she meant it. After the call, Claire and Elena sat in silence for a long time. The laptop screen was dark. The office was quiet. Outside, traffic moved along the highway, normal life continuing its normal rhythm. We need to follow the money, Elena said. Claire nodded. She had been thinking the same thing. Derek's government salary was $178,000 a year. Good money, but not the kind of money that pays for secret apartments, expensive dinners, and gifts for multiple women over multiple years. I started looking at his bank statements, Claire said. She pulled a folder from her bag, printed pages, highlighted lines. He has a personal checking account and a savings account, both normal. But 3 months ago, I found something else. She laid the pages on Elena's desk. There are monthly transfers going out of his personal account to a property management company called Arbor Lane Holdings, $1,800 a month, for the past 14 months. Elena picked up the papers, read them carefully. That matches the timeline of Valentina, she said. Exactly. I looked up Arbor Lane Holdings. It manages a building on Connecticut Avenue in the district, 1-bedroom apartments. I cross-referenced the address with Valentina's emergency contact form from the ICE office. Elena, it is the same address. Derek has been paying for Valentina's apartment. With his personal funds. That is what I thought at first, but look at this. Claire pulled out another set of pages. These were different. Not bank statements, expense reports. She had found them in the filing cabinet in Derek's home office, buried under 3 years of tax returns. These are reimbursement requests submitted through the ICE regional budget. Travel expenses, meal allowances, consultation fees. They total roughly $22,000 over the past 18 months. None of them correspond to actual events. I checked every date against his public calendar and the office records. The conferences he claimed to attend do not exist. The meals he claimed to expense were on days he was in Virginia, not traveling. Elena set the papers down. He has been laundering his affair through the federal budget, she said. $22,000 in fraudulent reimbursements, at minimum. Those are just the ones I could access from his home office. There could be more at the actual office. Elena stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the highway for a long moment. Claire, we are not building a divorce case anymore. We are building a federal prosecution. I know. This is abuse of authority. Fraudulent use of government funds, sexual coercion of a subordinate, obstruction. If he interfered with Lucia Salazar's immigration case as retaliation, and depending on how far the financial trail goes, possible wire fraud. I know, Claire said again. Are you sure you want to go this far? Once we bring in the FBI, there is no going back. This will be public. Your name will be in the papers. Derek's family will know. Everyone will know. Claire thought about Thomas Whitfield, Derek's father, the retired federal judge who believed his son was a good man, who bragged about Derek at dinner parties, who had no idea that his son's legacy was built on the suffering of women who could not fight back. Everyone should know, Claire said. Elena nodded, slowly. Then we need the recordings. Claire reached into her bag one more time. She pulled out a small digital recorder. Black, the size of a thumb. She placed it on the desk between them. I have been collecting these for 2 weeks, Claire said. I swap them out every 3 days. Fresh batteries, fresh memory card. Derek makes calls from his home office almost every night after dinner. He thinks I am watching television. Elena picked up the recorder. What is on here? 11 hours of audio. Most of it is routine. Work calls, budget discussions. But there are 4 calls to Valentina, and 1 call to a colleague at the ICE office that changes everything. Claire pressed play. The small speaker filled the room with Derek's voice. Clear, confident, the voice of a man who believed he was untouchable. I need you to slow walk the Reyes visa renewal. Keep the file on your desk. Do not process it. Do not flag it. Just let it sit. A pause. Then another voice, nervous, uncertain. Derek, if anyone finds out I am sitting on a case file. Derek again, cutting him off. Nobody is going to find out. I run this office. Just do what I tell you and everything stays clean. Elena pressed to stop. She stared at the recorder like it was a grenade with the pin pulled. He instructed a federal employee to deliberately delay an immigration case for personal reasons, Elena said. That is obstruction, and the other person on that call is a co-conspirator. His name is Paul Archer, Claire said. Senior case officer. Been in Derek's pocket for years. Elena looked at Claire with something that went beyond professional admiration. It was the look of a woman realizing that the quiet housewife sitting across from her had just built one of the most thorough federal cases she had ever seen. Without a law degree, without a badge, without a team. Just a notebook, a recorder, and 12 years of rage stored in perfect silence. How long did this take you? Elena asked. 5 weeks, Claire said. Give or take. Claire Morrison, Elena said, using her maiden name deliberately. You are terrifying. Claire allowed herself a small smile, the first real one in weeks. I have one more thing, she said. She reached into the bag and pulled out a thick manila envelope. She placed it on the desk. It landed with a weight that made Elena raise her eyebrows. What is this? The complete dossier, 214 pages. Everything, copies of the messages from the encrypted app, bank statements with the transfers highlighted, expense reports marked with the fraudulent claims, screenshots of Valentina's employment records, Rosa's deportation file with Derek's signature, Maria's contact information and preliminary statement, Camilla's timeline, Lucia's case file showing the suspicious irregularities that led to her deportation, and the transcripts of every recording I have made in the past 2 weeks. Elena opened the envelope. She did not read everything. She flipped through, page after page, tabs color-coded, sections labeled, cross-references noted in the margins. It was not the work of an angry wife. It was the work of a professional investigator who happened to also be an angry wife. Tomorrow morning, Claire said, I want that envelope on the desk of the FBI field office in Washington, and I want you to hand-deliver it to someone you trust. Elena closed the envelope. She held it in both hands. I know exactly who to call, she said. Special Agent Diane Cooper, Corruption and Civil Rights Division. She does not play games and she does not leak. Perfect. Claire stood. She picked up her bag. At the door, she stopped. Elena. Yes? Thank you for believing me. Elena looked at the envelope in her hands. Then at Claire. I did not need to believe you, Claire. The evidence speaks for itself. You made sure of that. Claire drove home. She stopped at the grocery store on the way, bought chicken, rosemary, and potatoes. Derek liked roasted chicken on Thursdays. She pulled into the driveway. The porch light was on. Derek's car was in the garage. She carried the groceries inside, set them on the counter, started prepping dinner. Derek came downstairs, kissed her forehead. Chicken tonight? With rosemary, Claire said. My favorite. I know. She sliced the potatoes. Thin, even, precise. The way she did everything now, the way she had learned to do everything in the past 5 weeks. With patience, with care, with the absolute certainty that every small action was building toward something massive. In 24 hours, the FBI would have the dossier. In 48 hours, Special Agent Diane Cooper would begin reading 214 pages that would end Derek Whitfield's career, his reputation, and his freedom. And Derek would be sitting right here, at this kitchen table, eating roasted chicken with rosemary, telling Claire about his day. completely unaware that the woman across from him had already won. She just had not told him yet. Elena delivered the envelope on a Friday morning, 9:15, FBI field office on 4th Street in Washington. She walked through security, gave her name, and asked for Special Agent Diane Cooper by name. The receptionist made a call. Elena waited 11 minutes. Then a woman appeared through a glass door. Mid-50s, short gray hair, navy pantsuit, no smile. Diane Cooper looked like someone who had spent 30 years listening to people lie and had long since stopped being impressed by any of it. They sat in a small conference room, fluorescent lights, gray table, 2 bottles of water that neither of them opened. Elena placed the envelope on the table. This concerns a sitting ICE regional director, Derek Whitfield, Virginia District. Cooper did not react. She opened the envelope. She read the first page, then the second. By the 10th page, she had pulled a pen from her jacket pocket and started making notes in the margin. By the 50th page, she had stopped writing and was just reading, absorbing. It took her 90 minutes to go through the entire dossier. Elena sat in silence the entire time. She had learned from Claire. Silence was a weapon. Let the evidence talk. When Cooper finished, she closed the envelope, placed both hands on top of it, looked at Elena. "Who built this?" "The wife," Elena said. Cooper raised an eyebrow. "Just one." "The wife did this?" "She was a journalist before the marriage, investigative, award-winning. He made her give it up." Something shifted in Cooper's face. Not sympathy exactly, recognition, the recognition of a professional looking at the work of another professional. "This is thorough," Cooper said. "More thorough than most federal agents produce. The financial trail alone would justify opening an investigation. The audio recordings make it airtight. And the pattern with multiple victims takes it from misconduct to systematic abuse." "So you will open a case?" Elena asked. Cooper stood. She picked up the envelope and held it against her chest. "I am going to do more than open a case, counselor. I am going to make a phone call to the Inspector General of the Department of Homeland Security, and then I am going to make another call to the Office of Professional Responsibility. Your client's husband is going to have a very bad month." Elena stood. They shook hands. "One thing," Cooper added. "The wife, Claire. She needs to maintain her cover. If Whitfield gets any indication that an investigation is underway, he will start destroying evidence, wiping phones, shredding documents, pressuring witnesses. She needs to keep doing exactly what she has been doing." "She will," Elena said. "Trust me, she is better at this than any of us." Cooper almost smiled. Almost. The investigation was open. The machine was moving. And Derek Whitfield was still eating roasted chicken at his kitchen table, completely unaware that the most powerful law enforcement apparatus in the country had just been aimed at him like a rifle. 2 weeks passed. Claire continued her routine. Coffee in the morning, dinner in the evening, smiles, small talk, the performance of a lifetime. Every night she lay beside Derek and thought about Rosa in that factory in Oaxaca, about Maria in Chicago, still looking over her shoulder, about Lucia in Bogota, rebuilding a life she should never have lost, and about Valentina, 24 years old, trapped in an apartment paid for by stolen government money, loving a man who saw her as property. It was time to talk to Valentina. Claire discussed it with Elena for 2 days. The risk was enormous. If Valentina panicked and told Derek, everything could collapse. But there was a deeper risk in waiting. The FBI investigation would eventually require Valentina's testimony. If she was blindsided by federal agents showing up at her door, she might shut down completely. She might protect Derek out of fear. She might disappear. Claire needed to reach her first, not as a wife confronting a mistress, but as a woman offering another woman a way out. Elena arranged the meeting. She contacted Valentina through a legal aid organization, framing it as a routine consultation about DACA renewals. Valentina agreed. She arrived at a community center in Falls Church on a Wednesday afternoon, the same day Derek thought she was at yoga. Claire waited in a side room. When Valentina walked in, she froze. She recognized Claire. Of course she did. She had been in Claire's bed. She had seen the photographs on the walls. She knew exactly who Claire was. "Please sit down," Claire said. Her voice was steady, warm even, not the voice Valentina expected. Valentina did not sit. She stood near the door, one hand on the frame, ready to run. Her eyes were red. She had been crying before she arrived. Or maybe she cried all the time now. It was hard to tell. "I am not here to hurt you," Claire said. "I am not here to yell at you or blame you. I know what Derek is. I know what he did. And I know that you are not the villain in this story." Valentina's chin trembled. She bit her lower lip. Hard. "How did you—" she started. "I found everything," Claire said simply. "The messages, the apartment he pays for, the promises he made about your mother. I know he told you he would bring Rosa back. I know he told you that your DACA status depended on staying with him. I know he made you believe that you had no choice." Valentina's legs gave out. She sank into the nearest chair. Her hands covered her face. The sound she made was not crying. It was deeper than that. It was the sound of someone who had been holding their breath for 18 months and finally exhaled. "I did not want this," Valentina said through her fingers. "I did not choose this. He was my boss. He was kind at first. He asked about my mother. He said he felt bad about what happened. He said he could fix it. He said if I was patient, if I trusted him, he would bring her back." "And then?" Claire asked gently. "And then it changed, slowly. He started texting late at night, asking me to dinner, telling me I was special. I said no at first. I said it was not appropriate, and he reminded me. He reminded me what he could do. Not in a threatening way, not at first. He would just say things like, 'You know how complicated immigration cases can be. One mistake in the paperwork and everything falls apart.' He smiled when he said it, like it was a joke. But I understood. I understood what he meant." Claire listened. She did not interrupt. She did not judge. She sat across from a 24-year-old woman who had been systematically manipulated by a man with the power to erase her existence in this country, and she listened. "When did you realize it was not going to stop?" Claire asked. "When I tried to end it. 6 months in. I told him I could not do this anymore. I told him I wanted to just be his employee. Nothing else." Valentina wiped her eyes. "He got quiet. That was worse than yelling. He got very quiet and he said, 'Valentina, your visa renewal is sitting on my desk right now. It would be a shame if something happened to it.' And I knew I was trapped." The room was silent. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead. Outside, children were playing in the community center parking lot. Their laughter came through the wall like a sound from another world. "Valentina," Claire said, "I spoke to your mother." The girl's head snapped up. "She is alive. She is in Oaxaca. She is working in a factory. She misses you every single day. And she knows. I told her. About Derek. About you. About everything." Valentina was shaking now. Full body tremors. Not from cold. From the weight of something enormous being lifted and placed down at the same time. "Is she okay?" Valentina whispered. "She is strong. She is angry. And she wants to come home. Derek said he would bring her back. Every month he said next month. Every month." "Derek was never going to bring her back," Claire said. The words were direct but not cruel. They were the truth delivered without padding. "He needed your mother gone to keep you dependent on him. As long as Rosa was in Mexico, you needed Derek. That was the design. That was always the design." Valentina stared at the table. Her fingers traced a scratch in the wood. Back and forth, back and forth. "What do you want from me?" she asked. "I want you to be free," Claire said. "There is an FBI investigation. It is already open. They have evidence, bank records, recordings, testimony from other women Derek did this to. You are not the first, Valentina. There were others before you." Valentina looked up. "Others?" "3 that we know of. Same pattern. Young, immigrant, vulnerable. He targeted them, used them, and when he was done, he discarded them, or deported them." Something changed in Valentina's face. The fear was still there. But something else was growing beside it. Claire recognized it because she had felt the same thing 5 weeks ago in a motel bathroom, looking at herself in the mirror. It was the moment when shame turns into anger, when the victim realizes that what happened to her was not her fault, that she was not weak. She was targeted by a predator who chose her precisely because she had no power. "What do I need to do?" Valentina asked. "Right now, nothing. Continue your routine. Go to work. Do not change anything. Do not confront Derek. Do not tell him we spoke. When the time comes, the FBI will contact you. Elena will be with you every step, and I will make sure that your immigration status is protected. You will not be deported. Not now. Not ever." "And my mother?" "Elena is working on a humanitarian visa. It will take time, but Rosa is coming home. I promise you that." Valentina looked at Claire for a long time, studying her, trying to understand how the wife of the man who controlled her life was now the person setting her free. "Why are you doing this?" Valentina asked. "I slept with your husband. I was in your bed. Why would you help me?" Claire considered the question. She had asked herself the same thing, late at night in the guest room, staring at the ceiling. Why help the woman she found in her husband's bed? "Because Derek wanted us to hate each other," Claire said. "He wanted me to blame you instead of him. He wanted you to be afraid of me instead of him. That is how men like Derek survive. They turn women against each other so nobody looks at what they are doing. I refuse to play that game." Valentina's eyes filled with tears again. But these were different tears, not fear, not shame. Something warmer, something that looked like the beginning of trust. They talked for another hour. Elena joined them for the last 30 minutes, explaining the legal process, the protections available, the timeline. When they finished, Valentina stood. She walked to the door, stopped, turned back. "Claire?" "Yes?" "Thank you for seeing me as a person." Claire nodded. She did not trust her voice in that moment. Valentina left. Elena closed the door. "That was the hardest part," Elena said. "No," Claire replied. "The hardest part is next." The divorce papers were filed the following Monday. Elena handled it through a family law associate at her firm. Clean, simple, irreconcilable differences. No mention of infidelity, no mention of federal investigations, just a standard dissolution. Derek found the papers on the kitchen counter when he came home at 6:18. Claire was upstairs. She heard him open the envelope. She heard the papers slide out. She heard silence, a long, heavy silence. Then footsteps on the stairs. He appeared in the doorway of the guest room. His face was pale. The papers were in his hand. "What is this?" "A divorce petition," Claire said. She was sitting on the bed, reading a book. She did not look up. "Claire, we talked about this. I told you it was a mistake. We have been fine for weeks. I thought we were past this. We are not past this. You cannot just file for divorce without discussing it with me." Claire closed the book, set it on the nightstand, looked at him. "I just did." Derek's jaw tightened. She could see the shift, the charm falling away, the real Derek emerging, the one who controlled, the one who decided. "My lawyers will contest this. You will not get what you think you are going to get." Claire stood. She walked toward him. Slowly. She stopped close enough that she could see the small vein pulsing in his temple. "Your lawyers," she said quietly, "should be focused on keeping you out of a federal courtroom, not on our kitchen table." Derek's face changed. The anger cracked. Something else leaked through. Fear. "What did you say?" Claire stepped past him. Into the hallway. Down the stairs. She picked up her coat, her bag, her keys. "Claire, what did you just say?" She opened the front door. Evening air, cool, the smell of cut grass from the neighbor's yard. "Good night, Derek." She walked to the car. Got in, started the engine. In the rearview mirror, she could see him standing in the doorway. The porch light behind him, his silhouette frozen. A man who had controlled everything for 20 years, standing perfectly still because for the first time in his life, he did not know what was coming. Claire drove to Elena's office. She had one more call to make. Rachel Simmons, senior investigative reporter at the Washington Post. Claire had known her from her journalism days. They were not close friends, but they shared something more valuable: professional respect. Rachel had won a Pulitzer for a series on corruption in federal housing. She was meticulous, fearless, and she never published a story she could not prove. Claire dialed. "Rachel, it is Claire Morrison. I have a story for you, and I think you are going to want to sit down." Rachel Simmons listened for 45 minutes without interrupting. Claire told her everything. Not the emotions, not the heartbreak, just the facts. The way journalists do. Dates, names, documents, sources. A story built on concrete, not on feelings. When Claire finished, Rachel was quiet for a long time. Claire could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. Then the sound of a pen tapping against a desk. "How long can you give me before I publish?" Rachel asked. "The FBI needs to move first. Elena says they are planning to execute within 2 to 3 weeks. Once they act, the story is yours, exclusively. I will need to verify independently. I cannot publish based solely on your materials, no matter how solid they are. Journalistic standards. I would expect nothing less. And Claire, off the record, just between us. Yes? This is going to be the biggest federal misconduct story since the Secret Service scandal. You know that, right? This is front page, above the fold. Cable news for a month, congressional hearings, everything." Claire looked through the windshield of her car, the parking lot of Elena's office building, a streetlight flickering overhead. A cat crossing the pavement in the distance, unhurried, unconcerned. "Good," Claire said. 3 weeks later, on a Tuesday morning at 6:14, Claire was already awake. She had not slept. She was standing at the kitchen window in the guest room, holding a cup of coffee, watching the street. The neighborhood was still dark. Porch lights glowing, sprinklers ticking in the silence. At 6:17, she saw them. 3 black SUVs turning onto the street. No sirens, no lights. Just the quiet rumble of engines moving with purpose. They pulled into the driveway, one behind the other, and stopped. Car doors opened, men and women in dark jackets with yellow letters on the back. FBI, 8 of them, moving quickly but not running. The way professionals move when they know exactly what they are about to do and have done it 100 times before. The doorbell rang. Claire heard Derek's footsteps above her. He had been sleeping in the master bedroom. She heard him stumble. Curse. The sound of a drawer opening, probably reaching for his phone. The doorbell rang again. Then a knock. Firm, authoritative. The kind of knock that does not ask permission. Claire walked to the front door and opened it. Special Agent Diane Cooper stood on the porch. Behind her, 7 agents in formation. Cooper's face was expressionless. Professional. She held a folded document in her left hand. "Good morning, Mrs. Whitfield," Cooper said. "We have a federal warrant for the search and seizure of documents, electronic devices, and financial records belonging to Derek Allen Whitfield. Is your husband home?" "He is upstairs," Claire said. She stepped aside. "Come in." The agents filed past her. Methodical. 2 went to the home office. 2 went upstairs. 2 began working through the living room. 1 stayed at the front door. Cooper remained in the hallway, coordinating through a radio on her shoulder. Derek appeared at the top of the stairs. He was wearing pajama pants and a white undershirt. His hair was flat on one side. His eyes were swollen. He looked like a man who had been pulled from a dream into a nightmare and had not yet figured out which one was real. "What the hell is going on?" he said. His voice was loud, commanding, the voice he used in his office when subordinates made mistakes, the voice that expected obedience. Cooper looked up at him. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. "Derek Whitfield, I am Special Agent Diane Cooper with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We are executing a search warrant issued by the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia. The warrant covers all electronic devices, paper documents, financial records, and communications equipment in this residence. You are not under arrest at this time, but I strongly advise you to cooperate fully and refrain from interfering with our search." Derek gripped the railing. His knuckles went white. The same white Claire's knuckles had gone the night she sat in her car outside this house, 5 weeks ago, deciding what to do. "This is a mistake," Derek said. "I am a federal officer. I am the regional director of—" "I am aware of your position, sir," Cooper interrupted. "That is why we are here." Derek looked at Claire, standing at the bottom of the stairs, coffee in her hand, calm, watching him with an expression he had never seen before. Not anger, not triumph. Something worse. Certainty. The absolute, unshakable certainty of someone who already knows how the story ends. "Claire," he said, "what did you do?" She took a sip of her coffee. did not answer. 2 agents came out of the home office carrying boxes, laptops, hard drives, file folders. The filing cabinet where Claire had found the fraudulent expense reports was being photographed and catalogued. In the bedroom, another agent was bagging Derek's personal phone. The encrypted messaging app, 500 messages to a woman named V. All of it in evidence bags now. Derek was escorted to the living room. He sat on the couch, the same couch where he used to fall asleep watching football, the same couch where Claire had taken his phone and read the messages that started all of this. An agent sat across from him with a notepad, not asking questions yet, just watching, the way Claire had watched for 5 weeks. The search took 3 hours and 47 minutes. When it was over, Cooper approached Derek. "Mr. Whitfield, you are being placed on immediate administrative leave pending the results of this investigation. Your government credentials and badge are being confiscated. You are not to contact any current or former employees of the ICE regional office. You are not to leave the state of Virginia. Do you understand?" Derek did not answer. He was staring at the empty space on the bookshelf where his laptop used to be. The space where his badge used to sit next to a photograph of him shaking hands with a senator. The badge was gone. The photograph remained. But it looked different now. Smaller. Meaningless. "Do you understand, Mr. Whitfield?" "Yes," he said. His voice was barely a whisper. The agents left. The SUVs pulled away. The neighborhood was awake now, curtains pulled back, faces in windows. A man walking his dog had stopped on the sidewalk and was pretending not to stare. Claire stood on the porch and watched the last SUV disappear around the corner. She finished her coffee, went inside, washed her cup, placed it in the drying rack. Then she picked up her prepaid phone and sent one text message. To Rachel Simmons. "It is done. Publish when ready." The Washington Post story went live at 11:14 the following morning. The headline stretched across the top of the website in bold black letters. ICE Regional Director accused of systematic sexual coercion of immigrant women. Rachel had spent 3 weeks independently verifying everything Claire had provided. She had confirmed the financial records through public filings. She had interviewed Maria Santos on the record. She had obtained a statement from Rosa Reyes through Elena's contact in Oaxaca. She had reviewed the court documents from Lucia Salazar's deportation and found the irregularities that Claire had flagged. And she had obtained a comment from the FBI confirming that an investigation was active. Everything checked, everything held. The story was 12,000 words long. It detailed the pattern. It named the victims who consented to being named. It described the mechanism of control. How Derek used his authority over immigration cases to create dependence. How he used the threat of deportation as leverage. How he used government funds to maintain the infrastructure of his affairs. And how, for years, nobody noticed, because the victims were immigrant women. Women without power. Women without voice. Women whom the system was designed to overlook. By noon, every major news network had picked it up. CNN ran a breaking news banner. FBI investigating ICE director for abuse of power. Fox News framed it as a government accountability story. MSNBC led with the human angle, interviewing an immigration advocate who called it the most disturbing case of institutional abuse I have seen in 20 years of practice. By 3 in the afternoon, the hashtag #DeportDerek was trending on every social media platform, not just in the United States. Globally, the story had crossed borders the same way Rosa Reyes had been forced to, except this time, the crossing carried truth instead of injustice. By 6 in the evening, the Department of Homeland Security issued a statement. The department takes these allegations with the utmost seriousness. Director Whitfield has been placed on administrative leave. A full internal review is underway. By 9 that night, 3 United States senators had called for a congressional hearing. And by midnight, Derek Whitfield was sitting in a motel room on Route 1, 12 miles from the house he could no longer enter, watching his own face on the television screen. The badge he had worn for 15 years was gone. The title he had built his identity around was gone. The phone that used to ring with calls from Washington was silent. He picked it up, scrolled through his contacts, called Valentina. The number was disconnected. He called his father. Thomas answered on the second ring. "Dad," Derek said, "I need to talk to you." The things they are saying, they are not. I read the Washington Post article, Thomas said. His voice was flat, the voice of a retired judge who had spent 40 years weighing evidence. I read every word, Derek. Then I read the FBI affidavit that was filed with the court this afternoon. It is public record now. Anyone can read it. Dad, please, let me explain. Explain what? That you used the power I helped you build to prey on women who had no one to protect them? That you signed deportation orders to serve your own desires? That you committed fraud with taxpayer money to pay for your affairs? Silence. I spent my career defending the law, Derek. I believed you were continuing that legacy. I defended you at dinner parties. I bragged about you to my colleagues. I told everyone that my son was making this country safer. Thomas paused. When he spoke again, his voice was different, older, broken. You did not make anyone safer. You made them afraid. You used fear the way bullies use it. And you did it wearing a badge that was supposed to mean something. Dad, do not call me again. Not until you are ready to tell the truth, the whole truth, to a judge, under oath. The line went dead. Derek sat on the edge of the motel bed. The television was still on. His face was still on the screen. A photograph from a press conference 2 years ago. He was smiling in the photograph, confident, powerful, standing behind a podium with the ice seal, talking about protecting the homeland. The man in the photograph did not exist anymore. Maybe he never had. Derek pressed his palms against his eyes. He sat like that for a long time. The television murmured. The air conditioner hummed. Outside, trucks passed on Route 1, heading somewhere, anywhere, everywhere except here. Claire did not see any of this. She did not know about the call to Thomas. She did not know about the motel on Route 1. She did not need to know, because Claire was not watching Derek's destruction. She was already past it. She was sitting in Elena's office. Rachel Simmons was on speakerphone. The three of them were reviewing the next phase. The federal hearing was scheduled for the following week. The FBI had enough to proceed. The Inspector General's office had launched a parallel review, and 4 congressional offices had requested briefings. Valentina is ready to testify, Elena said. I spoke with her this morning. She is scared but resolute. Maria Santos has also agreed. She is flying in from Chicago. What about Lucia? Claire asked. Still in Bogota, but she recorded a video deposition through our consulate contact. 37 minutes. Detailed. Devastating. Rachel spoke from the phone. My editors want a follow-up piece. The human stories behind the investigation. Rosa, Valentina, the other women. Would any of them speak on the record? Rosa already gave you a statement, Elena said. And Valentina has agreed to an interview after the hearing. Not before. We do not want anything to compromise her testimony. Claire leaned back in her chair. She touched the dragonfly pendant around her neck. The silver was warm from her skin. She had not taken it off since the night in the motel. It had become something more than jewelry now. It was a compass, a reminder. Dragonflies only fly forward. There is one more thing, Claire said. Elena and Rachel both waited. I want to testify too. At the hearing, not as a victim, as a witness. I want to sit in that courtroom and tell them exactly how I found out, exactly what I found, and exactly what I did about it. I want it on the record, not for revenge, for the record. Elena studied her. You understand, that means your name will be in every newspaper in the country, your face on every screen. There will be no anonymity after this. Claire thought about anonymity. She had been anonymous for 12 years, invisible, a woman without a name, without a career, without a voice. Derek had given her anonymity like a gift. Here, be nothing. It is easier that way. I have had enough anonymity to last a lifetime, Claire said. I would like my name back now. Elena nodded. Rachel said, I will have a camera crew at the courthouse. The hearing was 7 days away. 7 days until everything became public. 7 days until Derek Whitfield sat in a federal courtroom and heard the voices of the women he had silenced. 7 days. And this time, Claire was not the one counting them in fear. She was counting them in anticipation. The federal courthouse in Alexandria sits on a street lined with old oak trees. It is a building made of stone and glass, designed to look permanent, designed to remind people that the law does not move. The law does not blink. The law simply waits until the truth arrives, and then it acts. On the morning of the hearing, Claire arrived early, 8:15. The proceedings were scheduled for 9. She wore a black blazer, white blouse, her mother's dragonfly pendant resting against her collarbone. She had thought carefully about what to wear. Not mourning, not celebration, authority, the quiet kind that does not need to announce itself. Elena was already inside. She had been there since 7, organizing documents, reviewing testimony outlines, coordinating with the prosecution team from the United States Attorney's Office. The case had grown beyond what any of them had anticipated. What started as a wife's investigation into her husband's affair had become one of the most significant federal misconduct cases in recent memory. 3 prosecutors, 2 FBI case agents, an inspector general's representative, and a courtroom full of journalists, legal observers, and members of the public who had lined up since 6 in the morning to get a seat. Claire walked through the metal detectors, down the marble hallway, past the wooden doors, into the courtroom. It was larger than she expected. High ceilings, dark wood paneling, the American flag beside the judge's bench hanging still and heavy, rows of benches filled with people she did not know, and at the defense table a man she used to know. Derek sat with his attorney, a high-priced defense lawyer from a firm in Washington that specialized in representing government officials in trouble. Derek was wearing a charcoal suit, his best one, the one Claire had helped him pick out for a congressional reception 3 years ago. His hair was combed, his posture was straight. He was trying to project the image of a man who had nothing to fear. But Claire could see his hands. They were flat on the table, pressing down, the way a person presses down when they are trying to stop the world from tilting. He looked at her as she entered. Their eyes met across the courtroom. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Derek looked away. He adjusted his tie. The small, automatic gesture he always made when he was lying. Claire had seen it 1,000 times, at dinner parties, on phone calls, in their bedroom when he told her he loved her. She took her seat in the front row, behind the prosecution table. Elena sat beside her, squeezed her hand once, then let go. The judge entered at 9 sharp. Honorable Catherine Walsh, mid-60s, silver hair, known for 2 things, thoroughness and zero tolerance for theatrics. She took her seat, adjusted her glasses, and opened the proceedings without ceremony. This is a preliminary hearing in the matter of the United States versus Derek Allen Whitfield. The charges before the court include abuse of authority under federal statute, fraudulent use of government funds, obstruction of immigration proceedings, and sexual coercion of subordinate employees. The prosecution may call its first witness. The lead prosecutor stood, a woman named Danielle Torres, 42, sharp, the kind of lawyer who asked questions she already knew the answers to. The prosecution calls Valentina Reyes. A door opened on the side of the courtroom. Valentina walked in. She was wearing a simple navy dress. Her hair was pulled back. She looked younger than 24. She looked like someone who had aged in one direction and then, very recently, started aging in the other. Like someone who was slowly remembering what it felt like to stand upright. She was sworn in. She sat down. Her hands were folded in her lap. She did not look at Derek. Not once. Torres began. Miss Reyes, can you describe your relationship with the defendant? Valentina took a breath. Then she spoke. And her voice, though quiet, carried through the courtroom like something that had been locked in a room for a very long time and had finally found the door. She described the beginning, how Derek had hired her, how he had been kind at first, how he had asked about her mother, how he had expressed sympathy about the deportation, how over weeks and months the sympathy had turned into something else, attention, flattery, then pressure, then threats disguised as concern. He told me that my DACA renewal was complicated, Valentina said. He said there were issues with the paperwork. He said he could fix them, but only if I trusted him. Only if I stayed close. He said, "Your future is in my hands, Valentina. Let me take care of you." Torres asked, "Did you understand that as a threat?" "Not at first. At first I thought he was being helpful. But then I tried to say no. I tried to stop seeing him outside of work. And he changed. He got quiet. Cold. He said, 'It would be a shame if something happened to your application. These things can go wrong so easily.' That is when I understood." "What did you understand?" "That I was not being helped. I was being held." The courtroom was silent, the kind of silence that has weight, that presses against the walls and the ceiling and the people sitting in the benches, the kind of silence that makes everyone in the room aware that they are witnessing something that matters. Valentina continued. She described the months that followed, the apartment Derek paid for, the dinners she could not refuse, the late-night calls she had to answer, and the promise that kept her there longer than anything else. "He told me he would bring my mother back," Valentina said. Her voice cracked for the first time. "Every month. He said, 'Next month I will start the process.' Then next month came and he said, 'These things take time. Be patient.' 18 months of patience. 18 months of waiting, and my mother is still in Mexico, in a town she does not know, working in a factory, alone." Torres paused, let the words settle, then asked one more question. "Miss Reyes, did the defendant ever explicitly threaten you with deportation?" Valentina nodded. "Yes, once. I told him I wanted to end things. He looked at me and said, 'If you ever tell anyone about us, I will make sure you end up on a plane to Mexico, just like your mother.'" Those were his exact words. Torres turned to the judge. "The prosecution has audio corroborating this testimony, Your Honor. Exhibit 14, a recording made in the defendant's home office." The recording played. Derek's voice filled the courtroom. Clear, unmistakable. The voice of a man who believed no one was listening. "Nobody deports anyone unless I say so. You are mine." Claire watched Derek's face as his own words echoed off the walls. He did not move, did not breathe. The color drained from his skin the way ink fades from paper left in the sun. Slowly, completely, until there was nothing left. The defense attorney objected to the recording. Judge Walsh overruled. The evidence had been obtained legally. Claire's recorder, Claire's home. No expectation of privacy violated. Valentina stepped down. Maria Santos took the stand next. Maria was different. Older now, 27. She had rebuilt her life in Chicago, found a new job, new friends. But the scars were still there. You could see them in the way she gripped the armrest of the witness chair, in the way her eyes darted to the exits before she began speaking. She told her story, the same pattern, the compliments, the dinners, the escalation, the moment Derek reminded her that her work visa was on his desk, the night she packed a bag and fled to another city because she was more afraid of staying than of starting over with nothing. "He told me nobody would believe an immigrant girl over an ICE director," Maria said. "And for 3 years I believed him. I believed that I was small and he was powerful, and that the world worked the way he said it did." Torres asked, "What changed?" Maria looked at Claire, directly, across the courtroom. "Someone believed me," Maria said. For the first time, someone with power chose to believe me. The third testimony came through a screen. Lucia Salazar. Video deposition from Bogota. 37 minutes. She spoke in English, her voice steady but her hands trembling on the table in front of her. She described how she had worked in Derek's office, how the pattern had begun, and how, when she pushed back, when she told him she would report his behavior, her immigration file was suddenly flagged for irregularities that had never existed before. 3 weeks after I said no, Lucia said, I was on a plane. I lost my apartment, my savings, my life. Everything I had built in 8 years, because I told a powerful man that he could not have what he wanted. The courtroom was heavy with silence when the screen went dark. Torres called one more witness, Claire Whitfield. Claire stood. She walked to the witness stand. She was sworn in. She sat down. and she looked at the courtroom full of strangers who were about to hear her story. She did not look at Derek. She did not need to. He was no longer the audience that mattered. Claire described finding Derek with Valentina. She described the folder on the nightstand, the name Reyes, the deportation order with her husband's signature. She described the weeks of investigation, the laptop, the messages, the financial trail, the recordings, the dossier. She described it all with the precision of someone who had spent her career turning chaos into narrative. Facts, dates, documents, no emotion, no tears, just the truth, laid out like bricks in a wall. When she finished, Torres asked, "Mrs. Whitfield, why did you not confront your husband immediately?" Claire considered the question. She had anticipated it. Because confrontation would have given him time to react, time to destroy evidence, time to pressure witnesses, time to use the system he controlled to protect himself. I did not want a confrontation. I wanted a case, an airtight, undeniable, documented case. Because women like Valentina and Maria and Lucia deserve more than a shouting match in a kitchen. They deserve the full weight of the law. The courtroom was still. Torres nodded. No further questions. The defense attorney stood. He asked Claire 3 questions. Claire answered all 3 with single sentences. He sat back down. There was nothing to attack. The evidence was too complete. The testimony was too consistent. The wall Claire had built was too tall. Judge Walsh called a recess. 15 minutes. People stood, stretched, murmured. The energy in the room was electric, the kind of energy that follows a storm. During the recess, something happened that Claire did not expect. Thomas Whitfield was in the courtroom. He had been sitting in the back row. Claire had not noticed him. Nobody had. He was 70 years old now, white hair, a face that had spent decades being composed. He was wearing a dark suit, no tie. His hands were resting on his knees. When the recess was called, Thomas stood. He looked at the defense table where his son was sitting. Derek turned and saw his father. Their eyes met. Derek's lips moved. He mouthed a word. "Dad." Thomas held his gaze for 3 seconds. 3 seconds that contained 40 years of fatherhood. Baseball games, graduations, holidays, pride, hope. And now, this. A courtroom. Charges. Victims. The unraveling of everything he had believed about his own son. Thomas turned. He walked down the center aisle. Past the journalists. Past the observers. Past Claire, who watched him with something that was not pity, but was close to it. He pushed through the double doors, and he left. He did not look back. Derek sat at the defense table, alone. His attorney was whispering something about strategy, about next steps, about damage control. But Derek was not listening. He was staring at the doors his father had walked through, the doors that had closed behind him with a sound that was quiet but absolute. The sound of something ending that could never be restarted. The hearing resumed. Judge Walsh delivered her preliminary ruling. Derek Whitfield was formally indicted on all charges. Trial date set, passport confiscated, travel restricted to the state of Virginia. A monitoring device would be issued. Derek stood when instructed. He said, "Yes, Your Honor," when required. His voice was mechanical, empty, the voice of a man going through motions because the alternative was collapse. Outside the courthouse, cameras waited, dozens of them. Derek walked out flanked by his attorney. He covered his face with his hand, the same hand that had signed Rosa's deportation order, the same hand that had touched Valentina's face and promised safety. Reporters shouted questions. He said nothing. His attorney said, "No comment," 4 times. They got into a black car and drove away. Claire walked out a different exit, Elena beside her. No cameras, no questions. Just the afternoon sun and the oak trees and the sound of traffic on the street. "It is over," Elena said. "Not yet," Claire replied. "One more thing." 3 weeks after the hearing, on a Saturday morning in April, Claire drove to Dulles International Airport. She parked in the arrivals lot, walked to the international terminal, stood behind the barrier with a small crowd of people waiting for passengers from the morning flight from Mexico City. Elena was beside her. Valentina was on her other side. Valentina had not slept. Claire could see it in her eyes. The same eyes that had been full of fear in that community center weeks ago. They were different now. still nervous, still uncertain. But underneath all of that, something bright, something that looked like the first morning after a long illness, when you wake up and realize the fever has broken and the world is still there. The doors opened. Passengers filed through. Business travelers with rolling suitcases, families with children, an elderly couple holding hands, and then Rosa Reyes. She came through the doors slowly, a small suitcase in one hand, a bag over her shoulder. She was wearing a blue dress that was too big for her. She had lost weight. Her hair was almost entirely gray now. Her eyes scanned the crowd, searching, hoping, afraid to hope. Valentina made a sound, not a word, something before words, something that comes from the part of a person that language has not reached yet. She moved forward, first walking, then running. Rosa saw her. Her suitcase fell. Her hands went to her mouth. Then they opened, wide. They collided, mother and daughter. 2 years of separation closing in a single second. Valentina buried her face in Rosa's shoulder. Rosa held her daughter's head with both hands, pulling her closer, as if she could reverse time by holding tight enough. They stood like that for a long time. The crowd moved around them. Some people stopped to watch. Some looked away, giving them privacy. A child tugged on her mother's sleeve and pointed. "Why are they crying, Mama?" The mother knelt down and whispered, "Because they are happy." Claire watched from behind the barrier. She did not approach. This moment did not belong to her. It belonged to a mother and a daughter who had been separated by a man with a pen and a badge. And now they were together. Not because Derek had kept his promise, but because a woman he had underestimated had kept hers. Elena put a hand on Claire's shoulder. "You did this," she said quietly. Claire shook her head. Rosa survived 2 years alone in a country that was not hers anymore. Valentina survived 18 months under the control of a man who used her fear as a weapon. Maria rebuilt her life from nothing in a city where she knew no one. Lucia gave testimony from across the world, knowing it could never undo what was done to her. They did this. I just made sure someone listened. Rosa finally looked up. She saw Claire standing at the edge of the crowd. Their eyes met. Rosa released Valentina gently. She walked toward Claire, slowly, each step deliberate. She stopped in front of her. 2 women who had never met in person, bound by a man who had damaged both of them, connected by something stronger than that damage. Rosa took Claire's hands in hers. Her grip was firm, warm, the hands of a woman who had sewn garments for 12 hours a day to survive, the hands of a mother who had crossed a border she never asked to cross. "You gave me my daughter back," Rosa said. Elena translated, though Claire understood. Claire held Rosa's hands. She felt the dragonfly pendant warm against her chest. She was never his to take, Claire said. Rosa nodded. She squeezed Claire's hands once more. Then she turned back to Valentina, put her arm around her daughter's shoulders, picked up the suitcase from the floor, and together they walked toward the exit, toward sunlight, toward whatever came next. Claire watched them go. She did not follow. Some doors you open for other people, and then you step aside. Elena drove Claire home, not to the house in Virginia. Claire had moved out the week after the FBI raid. She had rented a small apartment in Arlington, 1 bedroom, a kitchen with a window that faced east, morning light every day, no porch light to leave on for someone who was never coming home. As they drove, Elena's phone rang. She glanced at the screen. "It is Derek's attorney," she said. Claire looked out the window. Trees, traffic, a woman jogging on the sidewalk. Normal life. "He wants to meet," Elena said after a brief exchange. "Derek wants to see you, face to face. He says he needs closure." Claire thought about that word. Closure. A word people use when they want permission to stop feeling guilty. A word that asks the person who was hurt to make the person who did the hurting feel better. "Tell him yes," Claire said. "Saturday, public place. I will choose the location." She chose a diner, not the house, not a lawyer's office. A diner on Route 7, halfway between his motel and her apartment. Neutral ground, vinyl booths. Coffee that tasted like it had been sitting for an hour. The kind of place where conversations happen that no one else hears. Derek was already there when Claire arrived. He was sitting in a booth near the back, a cup of coffee in front of him, untouched. He looked different, not just tired, diminished, like someone had taken a photograph of the man he used to be and reduced it by 30%. His suit was wrinkled, his shoes were scuffed. His eyes, the same eyes that used to command rooms full of federal agents, were red-rimmed and unfocused. Claire sat across from him. She did not order coffee, she did not take off her coat. She was not planning to stay long. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The diner hummed around them, a waitress refilling cups, a cook scraping the grill, a radio playing something old and sad behind the counter. "Thank you for coming," Derek said. His voice was hoarse, smaller than she remembered, like a radio turned down to the lowest volume. Claire nodded. She waited. Derek wrapped both hands around his coffee cup. He stared at it, not drinking, just holding on. The way a man holds on to a railing when the floor is moving beneath him. "I have been thinking," he said, "about everything, about you, about what I did, about who I was." He paused, swallowed, continued. "I lost everything, Claire. My career, my badge. My father will not speak to me. My name is on every news site in the country. I cannot go to the grocery store without someone recognizing me. I had to move 3 times because the motels kept asking me to leave after other guests complained." He looked up. His eyes were wet. Not crying. Not yet. But close. "I am not telling you this for sympathy. I know I do not deserve sympathy. I am telling you because I need you to know that I understand. I understand what I lost, and I understand that I lost it because of choices I made. Not because of you. Not because of the investigation. Because of me." Claire listened. She kept her hands on the table. Still. Open. She did not lean forward, and she did not lean back. "Valentina," Derek said. The name came out rough, like it had edges. "I told myself it was love. I told myself she wanted me. I told myself it was mutual. But it was not. I know that now. She was afraid of me. She stayed because she was afraid. And I knew it. Somewhere inside, I knew it. And I used it." He covered his face with one hand. A long, shuddering breath. "And Rosa, I signed that order. I remember the day. It was a Thursday. I had 47 cases on my desk. Hers was one of them. 25 years in this country, clean record. A daughter who depended on her. And I signed it because it was on the pile and I had a meeting at 3. I did not think about it. I did not think about her. She was a file. A number. And then, months later, when I met Valentina, when I learned who her mother was, I could have helped. I could have reversed it. I could have done the right thing." "But you did not," Claire said. Not a question. "I did not. Because helping Rosa meant admitting what I had done. And admitting what I had done meant losing control of Valentina. And losing control of Valentina meant losing the one person who made me feel powerful outside of work." She looked at me like I could fix anything. Like I was God. And I was addicted to that feeling. Derek put his coffee down. He had not taken a single sip. "I destroyed people, Claire. Real people. Women with families and dreams and futures. I destroyed them because I could. Because the system let me. Because nobody was watching." He looked at her. "Except you. You were watching." Claire held his gaze. She felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not anger, not pity. She felt the way you feel when you finish a very long book and close the cover. Complete, done. "Derek," she said, "I am going to say something and I need you to hear it. Not as your wife. Not as the woman who built the case against you. Just as a person speaking to another person." He nodded. "You are not sorry for what you did. You are sorry for what happened to you. There is a difference. You sat here and told me about your motels and your groceries and your father not speaking to you. You told me about how you lost your career and your name. But you did not start with Rosa. You did not start with Maria. You did not start with Lucia. You did not start with Valentina. You started with yourself. Derek opened his mouth, closed it. That is the problem, Derek. It has always been the problem. You see the world as something that happens to you. The women in your office were not people to you. They were functions. They served a purpose. And when they stopped serving that purpose, or when they tried to assert their own humanity, you removed them. The way you removed me from my career. The way you removed Rosa from her country. The way you tried to remove Valentina from her own future. The diner was quiet around them. Even the radio seemed to have gone still. I did not come here to forgive you, Claire said. Forgiveness is not my job. That is between you and the women you hurt. Between you and whatever judge handles your case. Between you and whatever version of yourself you see when you look in the mirror at 3 in the morning. She reached for the dragonfly pendant, held it between her fingers. The silver was warm. But I will tell you this. You are going to prison. That is almost certain. And when you are there, you are going to have time. A lot of time. Use it. Not to feel sorry for yourself. Use it to understand what you did. Really understand. Not the headlines. Not the charges. The actual human damage. The mother who spent 2 years in a factory because of your signature. The young women who were afraid to say no because you held their entire lives in your hands. The wife who disappeared inside your house for 12 years because you convinced her she was nothing without you. Claire stood. She buttoned her coat. If you do that, if you really do that, then maybe someday you will be worth the air you breathe. But that is not my project. That is yours. She reached into her pocket and placed a $10 bill on the table. For the coffee, she said, and she walked out. The bell above the diner door chimed once. The parking lot was half empty. The sun was low, casting long shadows across the asphalt. Claire walked to her car, got in, started the engine. She did not look back at the diner. She did not check the rearview mirror to see if Derek was watching from the window. She drove, not fast, not slow, just drove, through the streets of Northern Virginia, past the houses she used to envy, past the country club where Derek played golf with men who no longer returned his calls, past the school where she had once imagined sending children she never had because Derek always said the timing was not right. She drove until the streets became unfamiliar, until the houses thinned and the trees thickened and the road opened up into something that felt less like a city and more like a beginning. Then she pulled over, turned off the engine, and sat in the silence. For the first time in months, Claire did not think about Derek, did not think about the case, did not think about the hearing or the headlines or the women she had helped. She just sat, breathing, existing, a woman in a car on the side of a road, remembering what it felt like to have nothing to do and nowhere to be and no one to perform for. She stayed there for 17 minutes. She counted again. Just like she had counted in the car outside her house the night everything began. But this time, the counting was different. It was not a countdown. It was not a decision. It was just time. Her time. Nobody else's. Then she started the car and drove to her apartment. The one-bedroom in Arlington with the kitchen window that faced east. 1 year later, Claire Whitfield was gone. Not literally. She was still in Arlington. Still in the one-bedroom apartment. Still drinking black coffee every morning by the window that faced east. But Claire Whitfield, the wife, the homemaker, the woman who smiled and cooked and disappeared, that woman was gone. And in her place was someone who had been waiting 12 years to exist. Claire Morrison, journalist, again. She had started writing 3 months after the hearing, a freelance piece for The Atlantic about institutional abuse in federal agencies. The editor had called her after reading the Washington Post coverage. Would you be interested in writing about this from the inside? Claire had said yes before the sentence was finished. The piece was published to critical acclaim. 12,000 words, detailed, unflinching. Not a revenge story, not a victim's memoir, an investigation, the kind Claire used to do before Derek convinced her that her talents were better used in a kitchen. After that, the offers came. The New Yorker, ProPublica, NPR. A literary agent who wanted to discuss a book. Claire said yes to some and no to others. She was selective now. She had learned that her time had value, and she was no longer willing to give it away to anyone who asked. She was also consulting with 3 nonprofit organizations that worked with immigrant women who had experienced abuse by government officials. Elena had connected her. The work was quiet, unpaid, important. Claire sat with women who reminded her of Valentina, women who had been told that their silence was the price of their safety, women who needed someone to say, "Your story matters, and I will help you tell it." Derek Whitfield was sentenced in September, 8 years in federal prison. The judge, Catherine Walsh, delivered the sentence with the same composure she had maintained throughout the trial. The defendant abused the sacred trust of public office. He weaponized the immigration system against the very people it was designed to serve. He used fear as a tool of control and silence as a shield. This court does not take lightly the violation of that trust. Derek stood when the sentence was read. He said nothing. His attorney said they would appeal. The appeal was denied 4 months later. He was transferred to a federal correctional facility in Cumberland, Maryland. Medium security, shared cell, no private office, no badge, no power over anyone's immigration status. Just a man in a beige uniform, eating meals he did not choose, on a schedule he did not set. Nobody visited him, not his father, not his former colleagues, not Valentina. Thomas Whitfield published an open letter in the Washington Post 2 weeks after the sentencing. It was short, 3 paragraphs. He wrote about the responsibility of public service, about the difference between power and authority, about the shame of learning that the person you raised became the person others feared. He did not mention Derek by name. He did not need to. Everyone knew. Thomas donated $150,000 to a legal aid fund for immigrant women. He never spoke publicly about his son again. Valentina Reyes received her permanent green card 7 months after the hearing. Elena handled the case pro bono. The approval came on a Tuesday. Valentina called Claire that evening. "It came," she said. Her voice was different now, lighter, not the voice of the girl trembling in a community center. The voice of a woman who had walked through something terrible and come out on the other side with her name intact. "I am so glad," Claire said. "I enrolled in classes," Valentina added, "at Northern Virginia Community College. I am studying social work. I want to help people like me, people who feel trapped, people who think they have no options." "You are going to be incredible at that," Claire said. And she meant it. Valentina paused. Then, "Claire, I never properly thanked you. You do not need to. I do. You could have hated me. You had every reason to hate me. I was in your bed, in your house, with your husband, and instead of hating me, you saved me. I do not understand how you did that." Claire looked out the kitchen window. Morning light, the same light she saw every day now, reliable, constant. "I did not save you, Valentina. You saved yourself the moment you sat down in that community center and chose to tell the truth. All I did was open a door. You walked through it." Rosa Reyes was granted a humanitarian visa that became permanent residency within the year. She lived with Valentina in a small apartment in Falls Church, the same town where she had lived before the deportation. She went back to sewing, but not in a factory. She opened a small alteration shop on Broad Street, a tiny storefront with a bell above the door and a sewing machine in the window. She called it Mariposa, butterfly. Elena told Claire that Rosa had hung a photograph behind the counter. Not of Valentina, not of the shop. A photograph of Claire, taken at the airport on the day of Rosa's return. Claire had not known anyone was taking pictures. In the photograph, she was standing behind the barrier, watching Rosa and Valentina embrace, one hand on her dragonfly pendant, the other hanging at her side. Her face was calm, almost peaceful, the face of a woman who had done what she set out to do. Maria Santos was promoted at her company in Chicago. She never moved back to Virginia. She did not need to. She had built a life that was entirely her own. She sent Claire a Christmas card that first year. Inside, she wrote one sentence: "You gave me permission to stop being afraid." Lucia Salazar remained in Bogota. Elena's firm filed a petition to review her deportation. The case was still pending, but Lucia had told Elena she was not waiting for permission anymore. She had started a support group for deported women. 12 members, then 20, then 50. She called it La Voix, the voice, because that was what Derek had tried to take from her, and that was what she had taken back. On a Sunday morning in October, 1 year and 3 days after the night Claire had come home early from Philadelphia and pushed open a bedroom door, she sat at her kitchen table. The apartment was quiet. Sunlight through the east-facing window. Black coffee, no sugar, no milk. A notebook open in front of her. Not the same notebook from the investigation. A new one, for new stories, new investigations, new truths to uncover. Her phone buzzed. A text from Elena. There is another case. Another director. Different state. Same pattern. Different women. Same fear. Same silence. Claire read the message. She set the phone down. She looked at the notebook, at the blank page waiting to be filled. She touched the dragonfly pendant. The silver caught the morning light and sent a small flash across the kitchen wall. A tiny signal, a tiny spark. Claire picked up her pen. Forward, she whispered, and she began to write. Some stories end with justice. Some end with forgiveness. Some end with revenge. This story ends with a woman at a kitchen table, doing the thing she was always meant to do. Writing. Searching. Telling the stories that powerful men hope will never be told. Claire Morrison did not wait for someone to save her. She did not wait for the system to notice. She did not scream or beg or fall apart. She watched. She documented. She built a case so complete that the most powerful man in her world could not escape it. And then she opened the door for every woman he had silenced to walk through and speak. Not every revenge is loud. Sometimes the most devastating kind happens in silence, in notebooks filled at kitchen tables, in phone calls made from grocery store parking lots, in recorders hidden under desk drawers, in the quiet, relentless patience of a woman who was told she was nothing and decided to prove the world wrong. If this story found you today, it found you for a reason. Maybe you know a woman like Claire. Maybe you know a woman like Valentina. Maybe you know a woman like Rosa, separated from everything she loves by a system that was never designed to see her. Or maybe you are that woman, sitting in your own silence, wondering if anyone will ever listen. They will. Someone will. Sometimes that someone is a stranger, sometimes that someone is a friend, and sometimes that someone is you. If you want more stories like this, stories of women who refuse to be erased, stories of justice that begins in silence, stories that remind you that the truth does not need permission to exist, then subscribe to this channel. Not because we need the numbers, but because every subscription tells us that you heard this story, that it mattered, that you are ready for the next one. Next week, a new story, a new silence, a new reckoning. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Sweet dreams.